Do we just want to pick up from the saying it's Teal?
Well, I was just gonna re-record the whole thing. Although
You want to go all the way to the back, okay?
yeah, I was just gonna redo the whole thing. I am recording already. I had started recording right as you asked where we were gonna start from. So, just for the record, you incorrectly said that Diamond Division. No, Violet. Oh God, never mind.
I said it was Violet Division
You said
because
Violet
that's what
Division
it
missing
said
two
on the
buys.
challenge.
The challenge does not. Nobody else sees the challenge. Joining me for the Season 7 Violet Division Draft Analysis, we have got...
Aurora, coach of the Hoonsbook Hunters, and we've got...
I just said Violet.
look at.
We're doing Teal. Oh, okay.
Disaster. Back it up.
Back
it up. Call it off.
Hello, everybody. My name is Sam.
Welcome back, everybody, to week
Is,
5.
uh,
This is Charm.
Yeah, his
First up,
question
of
is...
course,
Hello and welcome back to Double Dip Draft. Finally, it is Season 7. I am your host, Spood, coach of the Southtown Sandslashers. Joining me today to give you the draft analysis for the Teal Division is...
Aurora, coach of the Hoonsbook Hunters, and we've got some fresh new drafted teams. Fresh out of the oven.
We certainly
Gen
do.
9 oven.
Fresh baked and smelling fantastic, as baked goods do. Hey, Aurora, it's been a while since since the last season, huh?
Yes, over a year, in fact.
Yeah. In that time, we've had I believe that Legends games either came out during or were out before our last season started, but, nothing was implemented. They hadn't made it into any mainline games as far as, like, the Hisuian Pokemon. But since then, we now have Hisuian Pokemon, Paldean Pokemon, and everything from Teal Mask, Indigo Disc, and also Pecharunt in the mix. So we have got everything here that's not Natdex ready to rock and roll for this season. And I think, nicely complementing that we have a lot of new Pokemon, a lot of new toys to play with, and obviously we have Terastallization in the bag of tricks now too. We've also got several new players in the Teal division, don't we?
Yes, both Asky and Snake are joining us for the first time, and we also have Not Pimp from the Kracked Kricketunes joining us from the Extra Cheesy offseason.
Yes, notably the winner of the Extra Cheesy offseason. That was the very first season that he'd played, and he won. So he's definitely a big threat. This season, just like last season, last season we had the Platinum Division. Because we have essentially half of 24 players advance. That means we have 12 players to reconcile a 12-player bracket. 4 players need to get buys into round 2, and we only have 3 divisions. So that means one of the divisions has to advance with 2 buys into the playoffs, which, if you're not familiar with how bracket terminology works, it basically means that the top player of every division gets to skip the first round of playoffs, presumed to have won, essentially, that round automatically. That's their reward for finishing at the top of their division. But in Teal, you get that for 2 players instead of just 1.
It's both the first and the second place finishers of the main season will not have to play in the first round.
Yeah.
Which is a little bit of an advantage. But
Definitely.
if you just win that first round, it doesn't change that much.
That's true. I mean, it's an advantage in the sense that, you're always playing for a better position in playoffs, ideally. Sometimes you are just fighting for your life to try and make it to playoffs full stop. But if you are a player who is thinking, I need to win Season 7 of Double Dip Draft, you're looking at that 2-buy division and thinking, I need to be in that one. But obviously, it's a double-edged sword, I think the 3 divisions are relatively evenly stacked this year, but I would give Teal a nod because it does have, I think, 4 different players that have been in grand finals of a season of Double Dip. So
Yes, Scoots has been in grand finals. The Duckletts have been in grand finals in the off-season. The Kricketunes were the winners of the
off-season
grand finals, and Chemith was season 4, was second place.
Actually, yeah, if you look at this, it's funny. We have 2 champion runbacks because Scoots versus Chemith was one of those grand finals, and Nihilus versus Not Pimp was the other one. So, very competitive division. 2 of these players get to advance, presuming obviously one of those 4 or all of those 4 make it into playoffs, 2 of them get to advance with a bye. So very exciting, very we'll say explosive, unpredictable division as far as just who we've got lined up for it. And I think it's about time we started having a look at that division. Starting, of course, with the man of the hour, Dumblespoods Army, coached by Scoots. This is, well, my god, he's an amazing player, isn't it? Scoots is the only player who has thus far played in and made it to playoffs in every single season. IDM used to also have that accolade, but he sat out for Extra Cheesy. Scoots entered Extra Cheesy and still made it to playoffs in that too. So if you go on his team page, you just see a wall of green as far as his placements are concerned. And his draft is no slouch to that effect. We've got Raging Bolt as his S tier. His A tiers are Ting, Lu, and Weavile. His B tiers are Skarmory and Galarian Weezing. His C tiers are Yanmega, Feraligatr, Minior, and Espeon, and his D tiers are Leafeon, Ambipom, and Combusken.
Yeah, the top end of this draft is bulky.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
I mean, talk to me about Skarmory and Ting Lu, my god.
Yeah, Skarmory, Tinglu, Skarmory already known for its very high physical defense. With some investment, it's no slouch on the special side either. Tinglu, base 155 HP, and then good defensive stats to boot, and its ability on top of that.
Yep. Ting Lu gets the ability that lowers the special attack of opposing Pokemon, meaning that it's 80 special defense, which is already fine on top of it, 155 HP. It's downright specially bulky anyway. Add in the fact that it's effectively only taking 3/4 damage from any special move. I mean, this thing, it does not move.
It doesn't move. It still has base 110 attack as well, so you can't pretend this thing isn't going to hurt you either, because it will.
Yep. Raging Bolt is very interesting. It's a Pokemon, we understand to be pretty good, but it is from, the final batch of Scarlet and Violet releases, as far as it was a part of Indigo Disc. So Raging Bolt, one of the new Paradox Pokemon, the past form of Raikou. Electric Dragon with the signature move Thunderclap, so it can essentially have a special electric-type Thunder Punch off of a base 137 special attack. 125 base HP and pretty good defensive stats. That thing also doesn't really tend to move too much, does it?
Yeah, and not just that, it is part of a very, very sturdy Dragon Fairy Steel core.
Yeah.
That, Skarmory, and Weezing.
Yep.
Yeah, it's gonna be difficult to try and dismantle that. If whenever people see an electric type, their first instinct is ground blows it up, but both of its compatriots are immune to ground.
Yep. Just such a, it's a stacked draft, and that's just talking about the higher tiers. Obviously Weavile is kind of a staple draft Pokemon, especially a draft pick that Scoots goes to a lot. It's fast, it hits hard, with Indigo Disc, it regained access to Triple Axle, which it had temporarily lost, and obviously, Chen Pao being Mega Weavile kind of made its stocks fall a little bit, but certainly in a format where there is no Chen Pao, Weavile always going to be a reliable, hard-hitting, very fast Pokemon.
Yeah, and that's really probably the aim of Scoots' team here. Use that very sturdy core that he has with Bolt, Skarmory, and Weezing. Slowly whittle down the opponents, and then once everything is in range, a sweeper comes out, and suddenly it just wipes any remaining health away.
Yeah, and his sweepers are very interesting. In the rule set of this draft league, it is open Terra, but you have to be a C or a D tier Pokemon. So, you can Terra your Yanmega, for example, into any type, as you please, but your opponent will know its Terra type at the beginning of the game, and, it's Yanmega can do that, but Ting Lu can't do that. Weavile can't do that. Raging Bolt can't do that. And so if you look down at his mid and low tiers, Yanmega is a speed boosting Pokemon. That's very scary. You give it one defensive Terra setup turn, it's +1 speed, and that doesn't even account for having a Protect in the back. +2 speed, and suddenly it's a real problem to deal with, right? You've got Feraligatr, a Dragon Dancing Sheer Force Pokemon that can Terra out of its Water typing. Minior is a Shell Smasher that can Terra out of its Rock Flying typing. Combuskin even is a Speed Booster that can Terra out of its Firefighting typing. So there is a lot of stuff that looked maybe at first glance a little underwhelming or like a pretty situational sweeper that can become a pretty generally applicable sweeper with the use of a Terra. And I don't think Scoots is going to be very shy about terraing things like Minior or Feraligatr or Yanmega,
Yeah, like they definitely get a much needed power boost out of it. I've used Minior in the past, and just one Shell Smash usually doesn't quite get you there. Also, its move pool was a little bit lackluster, but Terra Blast can just fill any one hole that you needed to fill.
Yeah.
Also, allows you to have a more precise control over when you're actually dropping below that 50% HP threshold.
He's Leafeon is kind of an interesting choice. We saw Cabral use it to fairly good extent as a sort of sometimes bulky defensive Wish Passer. Sometimes obviously a Chlorophyll Sweeper is what you'd see it more often used as. Leafeon also likes Terra, although it's not as Terra reliant as other Pokemon maybe on this draft. It's it certainly does not mind having a boost to its grass type moves or some extra coverage. And his hazard control I think is fairly good. I mean, at least as far as he's got Espeon, right, to bounce back hazards. And his own hazard setup is, Tinglu, Skarmory, Galarian Weezing, all very capable of putting up quite a few hazards.
The thing he is missing a bit is a Rapid Spinner, though.
He's missing a spinner, and he's missing a spin blocker. He has no Ghost type natively on this team, so if somebody clicks Rapid Spin into him and he hasn't already terra'd something into Ghost to switch it in, he can't even threaten an immunity to a Rapid Spin, which I think is a problem if he wants to go for hazard stacking and maybe phasing with Skarmory or Tinglu or something like that, because they can both Whirlwind. Looking at the team, I feel like the archetype, like you mentioned earlier, it's whittle things down with your really bulky and hard to beat top tiers so that you can open up a setup sweeper with Terra in the mid or low tier to clean up a bunch of weakened Pokemon. With a bunch of hazards on the field. But I think he is missing a few game pieces that would make this draft really hard to deal with if he, didn't have, like I said, missing a spin blocker, missing a spinner.
Yeah, so he'll have to manage the hazards carefully, because if they get set up against him, he can't get rid of them without getting rid of his own.
Yeah. But Scoots is a great player. If we're worried about him positioning well, I don't think we need to. I think he's more than capable of making a draft like this work, and it looks scary. I mean, do not let me, undersell even just Yanmega by itself. Really, one of the better, I think, mid-tier Terra picks, and Raging Bolt, Tinglus, Skarmory. These aren't, I think, very flashy Pokemon, but they're very reliable and very scary.
I think any Pokemon that's allowed to Terra that can make itself scary in just a single turn is definitely worth your attention.
Yeah. And I mean, Scoots went full send on getting I set up, stop me from setting up, I dare you.
I click button, I win.
Oh yeah, he loves click button and win. So Scoots, great player, very solid draft, excited to see what he does with it. So why don't you field us over, Aurora, to the very next draft.
The next draft we have lined up for you is Firebolts of the Northern Ninetales, who's coming at us with a Jirachi, a Ninetales Alola, a Excadrill, Gudra, Gyarados, Articuno, Tsarina, Crawdont, Delphox, Dusknoir, Poliwrath, and Avalok Hisui.
I know that that Hisui and Avalok pig caused some tears in the draft chat.
I think both Avaloks cost some tears. It's a very good pick in my opinion.
So this draft, very interesting. I think the immediate thing that you would notice if you looked at this was, okay, well, Alolan Ninetales, but no real Hail abusers, right? Excadrill, but no Sand Setters. This draft, it feels kind of like a Hail draft, because, you've got Articuno, you've got Hisui and Avalok that get now a defensive boost from Snow. Obviously, Hail no longer in the game, replaced with Snow, which is functionally the same, but instead of doing chip damage, that's gone, and it gives Ice types the defense boost that Rock types would get on their special defense in the sand. So, kind of a rebalance on the weather, but things like Slush Rush cores still exist, still work the same way. We see pretty much none of that. I think more so this team is leaning towards like dual screens Jirachi setup or like Gyarados setup with like having Aurora Veil obviously doing the job of both screens at once.
Mm-hmm. And probably like trying to like leverage that into like setting up one of its more threatening Pokemon, namely like Gyarados or Crawdaunt.
Yeah. And Crawdaunt being able to Terra is something that I definitely had my eye on as like a Terra Water Bandit adaptability Aqua Jet, right? Like, it's gonna blow something up, I know, off that base 120 attack. Crawdaunt's always been a real scary, or you could do like a Terra Dark, adaptability knockoff. Very splashable, very useful Pokemon, I think. And certainly behind screens, no slouch. And you can't forget about Jirachi. Ever since Lovin picked up Jirachi in, I think, Season 5, I've always had my eye on that as like a Pokemon that, you just kind of stumble into winning games with, I
feel it's like a very strange thing. It's not flashy, and like on paper, it doesn't look like it does that much. And then it flinches you 8 turns in a row, and you can't play the game.
Yeah, a base 100 Pokemon that has a 60% chance to flinch off both stabs if you need it is pretty ridiculous. Also considering, again, like Steel Psychic, pretty defensive typing. Behind a screen, you can easily throw something like a weakness policy on it. You can Cosmic Power up to shore up your defenses. You can't be poisoned, Like, Jirachi can get out of hand so fast if you don't have answers to it. And it's enabled a lot by Aurora Veil. So I love, just those top 2 Pokemon have, maybe the synergy that, like, you don't see out of the weather cores, but you see it in terms of, like, the Pokemon archetypes. Like, Jirachi loves screens, Ninetales is a premier screen setter.
Yeah. And then, with Gudra also, like, rounding off that Fairy Dragon Steel core, again, really bulky in general. Like, Alolan Ninetales is a bit of a, like, more frail link in it, but with the Snow defense boost and the screens, like, even though its numbers aren't that impressive, it becomes a lot more bulky than you might expect it to be.
Yeah. And just, again, like, imagining this team behind a screen, like, Gudra is taking 0 damage. Gyarados, after getting off an Intimidate behind a Reflect, taking pretty much 0 damage. Articuno, a Pokemon that, I think often is overlooked compared to the other 2 Cantonian birds, right? Zapdos and Moltres now both being actually very solid Pokemon. Moltres, ever since Heavy Duty Boots became a thing, really popular as like Flame Body, switch in, kind of U-turn bully. Articuno has never really seen that much success in the same way, but now with the Snow boost, 90 HP plus 100 defense plus Heavy Duty Boots plus, your Snow boost. Like, it actually can bully things now with its own, freeze dries and air slashes and roosts and hazes. And, I think it has a good place here as something that is surprisingly bulky despite its lackluster typing, which you can also Terra out of if you're Firebolt and you don't want your Articuno to be an Ice Flying type anymore.
Yeah, like, it's always kind of suffered from being bulky with just terrible fucking typing to be bulky with.
Yep.
And being able to remove that, as well as like all of the buffs that it's gained, it actually has become a lot more threatening.
Yeah. Now, it's still
alongside...
no Moltres or Zapdos, but it's getting better.
Yeah, alongside all of that, like, he has a whole bunch of Rock Setters.
Yeah, you like rocks?
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of rocks coming out of this team.
He's also got, I think, a fairly good spinner in Serena. Can get some pretty tricky stuff off of Queenly Majesty as well. It's one of those abilities that people forget exists. And, you can get around things like annoying fake outs and stuff like that.
Yeah, it also has, like, a wider move coverage than, like, a lot of grass types tend to get. This thing gets Triple Axle, gets Rapid Spin, gets High Jump Kick. Gets Knockoff, I'm pretty sure.
It's got its own unique signature move in Trop Kick, which, like, most of the time maybe you'll want to run like a stronger, more specialized grass type move, but spammable, stat dropping moves like that, honestly a pretty nice thing to have in draft. You can sometimes neutralize your own counters because they just happen to be like physical attackers or something,
Yeah, it definitely can like thwart an opponent's plan if they think they can like come in, like resist this thing's like most prominent moves and then like set up on it, and then it's like, oh, I can't set up because my fucking attack is now useless.
And if you want to talk about a Pokemon who, we talked about like numbers on Alolan Ninetales are not like that amazing, but you can still get the job done. We have kind of the opposite thing with Hisuian Avalugg, where like 95 HP, 184 defense, and then you get you get an extra 50% of that defense as well in the snow. Those numbers still don't make up for Ice Rock, man. It's just such a bad typing.
Yeah, like having... Like, if a Pokemon has a 4x weakness, you kind of have to think, like, okay, but what is it offering me, like, to make up for that weakness? Like, Gyarados is very versatile. It's a lot bulkier, like, despite the fact that it has a 4x weakness. It can set up, it can be bulky, it can be great fucking coverage. And then you have Pokemon that have multiple 4x weaknesses.
Yeah.
And then it really is, like, looking for something like, okay, so, like, what can I do to like mitigate these weaknesses? And it's just not there.
Yeah, like what does Avalugg even resist? Like ice only?
Ice, poison, flying. Like rock gives it a bunch.
Okay, sure, and normal. Okay, yeah, you're right. But still, quad weakness to fighting, quad weakness to steel, weakness to ground and water, and
it was to grass.
Neutral to things like fire, even, like, I don't know. Avalugg struggles, but, to its benefit, it can, again, Terra out of that Ice Rock typing. Unfortunately, I think it is going to end up being quite a bit of a Terra sink in most cases. Like, it's going to be, if you bring your Hisuian Avalugg, you'll probably have to end up Terrying it if you want it to do anything in your battle. But, it can Iron Defense, Body Press, Recover, Avalanche off of a pretty decent attack stat. With the right typing in the right place in the right matchup, like, I do think this thing can be a real menace.
But yeah, this thing can be like body press with like hail up in that defense stat. That's gonna hurt.
Yeah.
It's just that because hail only boosts the physical defense, this thing's whopping 36 special defense is
we'll say leaves something to be desired.
Yeah. I don't think it has like, I mean, like it can get like investment as well as an assault vest, but it just doesn't have like many ways of storing it up.
All I'm saying is, if there's a Pokemon that definitely dies to a vacuum wave from Ursaluna Blood Moon, it's Hisuian Avalugg.
True. Yeah. Dusknoir is also an interesting Pokemon.
Yeah, Dusknoir, infamously the worst Dusclops, gets pretty much just objectively worse as it goes down. Like, it can hit you harder with like a base 100 attack, like, I don't know, Elemental Punch or something like that, but generally speaking, like, these things are supposed to be bulky ghost types, and Dusclops with Eviolite just does it so much better that Dusknoir kind of gets overlooked in response.
Yeah, it's like they have their utility, and that's basically like what you use them for, to be like annoying and in the way. It's just that like Dusknoir like loses so much of its bulkiness in comparison to its re-evolution, to the point where it's a lower tier.
Yeah. I mean, you'd think 135 both defenses is like, oh, I love those numbers, but then you look at its HP and you're like, I don't love that number, Yeah, I mean, in effect,
it's a very strange thing. He also has a lot of water types, Gyarados, Crawdaunt, and Poliwrath.
That is
and while
true.
I can see like the arguments for both Gyarados and Crawdaunt, I feel like once we got to Poliwrath, it became a bit of a more questionable choice.
Yeah, I'm not really sure about Poliwrath. Again, like, sort of just half of a Weather Core. I think most people would want that in like a sort of Swift Swim archetype, or it can like Circle Throw. Like, not a lot of things get that, so it can phase. But Goodra gets Dragon Tail, right? And it's way better typing, and it's just generally like better at phasing. So I'm not really sure what Poliwrath is doing here, besides just having some fighting coverage, like stab fighting. Aside from that, I mean, I'm not like super on board with the Poliwrath choice, but I've been wrong before.
Yeah, maybe Firebolt will whip out some things that we've never seen before.
Yeah. And you know what? Firebolt is a good-ass player. I would not be surprised if he made me eat my words and put on a real show. And I mean, a lot of these pieces, like, Jirachi, Ninetales, Excadrill, Goodra, Gyarados, Articuno, Serena, these are all great Pokemon in their own right, and just because I can't see some specific synergies between, like, a handful of these different Pokemon, doesn't mean that they can't work or don't exist. So, just something we'll have to keep an eye out on. But, that's Firebolt! And up next, we have one of our new teams. This is their debut season in the Double Dip Draft. Put your hands together for ASCII, coach of the Philadelphia Phantumps. ASCII has Ogerpon Hearthflame as his S tier. His A tiers are Torkoal and Scizor. His B tiers are Hisuian Lilligant and Mousehold. His C tiers are Kilowattrel, Doxbun, Articuno, Galar, and Dugtrio Alola. And his D tiers are Murkrow, Hisuian Sneasel, and Wartortle.
I love that all the D tiers are babies.
They are all babies! Look, Murkrow and Sneasel and Wartortle. They're going to the daycare together.
Yeah. In fact, a lot of these Pokemon are just like silly little guys.
It's kind of funny, actually. Kind of on an unrelated note, like, I kind of expected all 4 Ogerpons to get drafted, and only 2 of them got drafted. We saw Hearthflame and Cornerstone get drafted by ASCII and I believe Vincent, respectively.
Yeah.
But Wellspring and Default Ogerpon went completely undrafted. So, interesting.
At least we don't have a deluge of Ogerpons, like, have one in every goddamn match.
Yeah, and we wouldn't want that anyway, but I was just so surprised, I kind of thought that there would be a sort of deluge of Ogerpons, and they're all, like, unique enough, like, different abilities, different typings. Some of them are better than others. I was just surprised. I wouldn't have guessed that Cornerstone would go over, like, Wellspring, even though it's in a lower tier, like, I don't know, I'm just surprised by that. But what we could have guaranteed, I'm sure I would have predicted this, and I imagine you would have as well, Hearthflame is not a surprising pickup. That is an amazing Pokemon.
Yeah, 120 base power, high crit, like fully accurate physical fire type move. Boosted by the sun?
Yeah, the best Sunsetter, in my opinion. I mean, it's pretty much between Torkoal and Ninetales, and I think most people would agree Torkoal is just better at most things.
Yeah, just switch into your Flash Fire Pokemon. Oh wait, it gets Molt Breaker.
Yeah, so your Heatran is not going to help you here. Ogerpon Hearthflame, fantastic Pokemon. Obviously, it also gets access to things like Hornleech and Swords Dance and Trailblaze, and just generally is a total menace. Even without the +1 attack boost that it would get for free from Terraing, because it obviously can't do that, it's still such an impressive, powerful Pokemon that this plus Sun, I mean, you might as well just be Chi-Yu in Sun, as far as I'm concerned, just on a physical end. And faster.
Yeah, a lot of Pokemon tend to exist on a sort of spectrum where sometimes they'll have a lower attack themselves, but the moves they use have a very high base power, or vice versa, a high attack but low base power moves that they're utilizing. Ogerpon has both.
Yeah. And again, boosted by Torkoal, so scary. I mean, gives it effectively a water resist, which it loses because of its fire subtyping. It gets it back, in Sun. Hearthflame loves the support from Scizor. I think a fantastic Pokemon, kind of, again, like a semi-Rain Team staple, but also does perfectly serviceable in the respect that it, resists, Torkoal's main weakness in ground and effectively resists water when the sun is up, which it often will be if this team is played correctly. Hisuian Lilligant, a new Pokemon from Hisui. This thing is, better Leafeon, kind of, insofar as, it's a physical grass-type Chlorophyll Sweeper. It also gets Victory Dance, which is the physical Quiver Dance that was added, which I don't think any other Pokemon get, if I'm not mistaken.
I don't believe so, yeah.
That thing, I mean, 105 speed, doubled by Chlorophyll. It's a monster. Mousehold, also a monster. I mean, it's a fast pivot, hazard controlling, population bomber.
Yeah, this thing, picked up straight from the untasteful places currently.
Yep.
Yeah, again, its raw stats don't look like much, and then it hits you 10 times.
Yeah, I mean 10 times.
And then suddenly, like, it doesn't really matter. You know, it's death by 1,000 cuts.
Yeah, and they're all
And all of them
technician
are happening
boosted.
on one turn.
Yeah.
And they're all technician boosted too. And they're all also like tidy up, you know, speed boosted, attack
Yeah.
boosted.
You know, these Pokemon are all really strong. The average, I mean, this is a fast team too. I mean, you know, disregarding outliers like Torkoal and Scizor, most of this team is hovering in like the high 90s to, you know, hundreds, 110s.
Yeah, and even the Pokemon that aren't like by default that fast, like Scizor has priority moves. Torkoal is bulky enough that it doesn't really give a shit.
Mm.
Something like Torkoal or a Waterwall can Shell Smash probably.
Yeah.
Murkrow has Prankster. Like, this team is, oof, it's going so fast.
It's going so fast, and I mean it's tricky and it's hard to deal with. And you know, I think also hilariously, you know, Doxbun I have touted it's not really a Chi-Yu counter, just because, you know, Chi-Yu is Chi-Yu, and even though it is, you know, immune to fire, it is still like, you know, and it's resistant to dark, but like a dark pulse off of Chi-Yu, like maybe Specs Chi-Yu, is still doing close to 50, I think, off of Doxbun. But just having it in the back and also being in the same division as Chi-Yu, you know, we'll see that hypothesis tested, I think.
Yeah, I think it'll be very interesting. I think, like, one thing that is kind of funny is, despite the fact that we have, like, 2 fire types in the top, this team is kind of weak to fire outside of Doxbun, just because fire tends to be mostly special.
Yeah. And it is kind of a problem, you know, you, like, especially in this meta, it is, you know, people are going to pack for Sun. You know, there's so many strong Paradox, like past Paradox form Pokemon running around. Sun is so much more accessible than Electric Terrain for, like, the future Paradox mons. So I think most people were still thinking, on some level, how do I beat Sun? How do I play into Sun? How can I take advantage of Sun? And into this team specifically, you're absolutely right. I would worry that somebody who picked up maybe like a random, you know, strong Chlorophyll Sweeper or, you know, Paradox Pokemon could just chew through so many of this team with just like a fire boosted or a sun boosted fire move. So that would be my concern. But overall, I still think it's a really strong team.
Yeah, and it's not even like that is a mindless solution because of Doxbun's ability.
Yeah.
Like, you fire type move into that thing, suddenly it has like 2.5 times its defense and it's body pressing you to death.
That's true, it does get body press, and it can Terra Fighting too to put some extra sting on it. You know, so definitely a smart pickup. I mean, I love the team, I think it's great. It makes me angry. I wanted Torkoal, it was sniped from me by Askey, so thanks a lot. You know, I know originally he wanted to grab Walking Wake instead of Ogerpon, but, you know, I don't think settling for Ogerpon Hearthflame is that bad, if I'm being honest. So, yeah, I think I'm so impressed by this team. And we didn't even cover other things, right? Alolan Dog Trio, fast, annoying ground type. You know, Galarian Articuno, like, weird, annoying setup sweeper. It gets recover. It's, you know, got an interesting typing. Like, it's got stuff going on. Wartortle's a good spinner Shell Smasher.
Yeah, we got discount Zapdos here too.
Yeah, that's true. We got everything. So I think it's a great team. I think it's a great team, and if you're not ready for it, the train will hit you real hard. I think he has good pivots, and as long as he's got a good idea of how to manage his field control and get in his Ogerpon in good positions, this team is gonna do some work.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to the weather wars that this division is going to see, because we've already seen Firebolt's team, now we're looking at this team.
That's true. Well, why don't you take me to, we'll say, hilariously, maybe another beneficiary of the sun.
Well, another beneficiary of the sun would be the Miami Milotics, as coached by Snake, who is running Chi-Yu as his S tier.
And that's what I mean when I say the beneficiary of the sun. He doesn't actually have any sunsetters or particular abusers, but oh my god, Chi-Yu.
Yeah, Iron Hands and Trainasarian as A tiers, Amoonguss and Gastrodon as his B tiers, Donphan, Low-Kicks, Spidoff, and Alchemy in C tier, and Altaria, Probopass, and Electrode rounding off the DDs.
Looks good. So I believe, and you'll have to forgive me if I'm wrong, I believe Snake comes from a background in VGC, either Snake or ASCII. Actually, no, I'm not going to say that with confidence, but I would believe it was Snake just looking at Tornadus, Amoonguss, Iron Hands, Chi-Yu. Like, this is very VGC core.
VGC pilled.
Very VGC pilled. And Tornadus and Amoonguss especially are a regenerator core, and a very bulky, annoying one at that. So if you're not prepared to whittle down this team, well, I guess that's the problem, is you can't whittle down the team. You need some strong breakers to get through Amoonguss and Tornadus, or they will just keep switching out over and over again and heckling your people.
You need to bust through this shit in one go, or you're not busting through at all.
Yeah, and he has so much pressure. I mean, so Gastrodon, obviously kind of a draft staple. Every season you're going to see Gastrodon go. No exception here. Fantastic. I mean, its grass weakness, obviously, handled pretty well by Amoonguss. You've got Donphan as, I think, a very good sort of spinner utility pick. It's got Sturdy, it's got Ice Shard, it's got a lot of little utility tricks. Low Kicks is so underrated, I think. I mean, it has one of the nastiest first impressions you're going to see off of that tinted lens.
No resist in that.
Down at the bottom, you get some more sort of niche out there picks. I will say, if I have a criticism for this draft, I think Low Kicks and Spite they don't really do exactly the same thing, but defensively they overlap so hard that if you're fighting this team from the other side, you're going to think, okay, as long as I pack something to beat Spite or Low Kicks, the other one will be beaten by that exact same thing almost every time anyway. So I don't really have to prep for them. It's easier from team building to be able to handle either one if you expect either to come.
Yeah. One thing I do find fun down here in the lower tiers is Probopass.
Probopass is cool. It's it gets Magnet Pull. That's cool.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it gets Magnet Pull. It can not that he should be struggling with steel types, given the fact that Chi-Yu should be eradicating them.
Yeah.
But it is a fun option to have. I also think that Electrode is a very good Terra Pokemon.
Oh yeah, Terra Ice Electrode is just so fast. My God,
Yeah, like, kind of lacking in the offensive pressure on its own. If its wants are lined up for it, then suddenly it's just like, oh, hey, I'm faster than you, and there's nothing you can do about this anymore.
Yeah, and I mean, Electrode's so fast, it's got web support from Spite on this team, potentially. You're faster than everything at that point. It doesn't matter how Scarf or Regieleki your opponent is. If you're Electrode and they're under webs, you're faster.
Exactly, and in order to facilitate the setup for that, we have Chi-Yu and Iron Hands busting their way through anything that might be resembling a wall.
Yeah, just so much damage. And Iron Hands too, I mean, it's a future paradox, so it's not getting sun benefits, but you could just as easily throw a booster energy on there, or a manual electric terrain if you really wanted to, off of Electrode or something. And that thing, I mean,
even then, you don't even really need to with 140 base attack.
You don't, but if you wanted a nuke that was sort of Chi-Yu-ish, you could.
Yeah, and all of this held together with, a very defensive core, like we've mentioned before with the Amoonguss, with Tornadus, with Gastrodon, Donphan.
Yep. This is a team
that is offering a bit more special defense.
Oh yeah. I mean, this is a team that is built to get in pivot, get out pivot, get in, Regenerator Mon, get out Regenerator Mon, and you wind up doing this annoying shuffle back and forth on their hazards until you get put in front of a Chi-Yu. And you're like, oops. And then the Chi-Yu kills something of your team.
It's like you're playing rock, paper, scissors for 7 turns in a row of your opponent, but the opponent has the option of just pulling out a gun.
Yeah, and they, have a chance of pulling out that gun every turn, so you have to win your rock, paper, scissors 7 times in a row. This team is so scary. It is so difficult. I am so intimidated by Tornadus and Amoonguss. I'm seriously, icky. Don't let me see that.
Bring your toughest ice types.
Also, shout out to Probopass. Could be a budget Magnezone. It is in a division with Skarmory, and it has Magnet Pull and Terra, so it could, could do electric type things to it if you wanted to.
I want to see that happen. I want to see that happen so bad. I want to see Skarmory die to this thing.
That would be very funny. Snake, you have a job. You have an important job now. But that's pretty much the shake on Snake. Why don't you take us over to the next player, Aurora?
The next player we have to go all the way to the Dallas Duckletts, as coached by Nihilus, bringing us another variant of Donphan and Great Tusk for his S tier.
Yeah, it's too bad
Clefable
Shreds is
and-
not in this division. Or the whole family.
It's with me, I'm sorry, I took it. Clefable superior for his A tiers, Galvantula and Arcanine Hisui for his B tiers, Dusclops, Duraludon, Staraptor, and Zoroark for his C tiers, Clawitzer, Hitmonchan, and Illumise, rounding off the bottom.
So good. I mean, Nihilus as a player, I feel like I have said this a lot, so I apologize for like repeating myself. I love Nihilus. He's a great guy. He is so good, and he just keeps getting, I mean, exponentially better every season. His, record on the right really speaks for itself. Having gone from just barely not qualifying on his first season to playoffs to his second season making the run into playoffs, and not only that, getting into round 2 of playoffs over Cabral, all the way, into extra cheesy where he made it 2 grand finals over Bananas. So like, really good resume. He's only getting stronger, and I think his team has the staples of like, oh my god, this guy knows what he's doing. Because again, we're talking about things that aren't that flashy. I think Great Tusk, not that flashy. Clefable, the epitome of like the boring Pokemon. But
I hate this fucking egg.
see, if you know, you know. Like, if you're a normal person and, you're like a less informed person and you're looking at the draft and you're like, oh, Clefable, whatever, an A tier that has stats like that? Really? Come on. But if you know, you know. Clefable is an A tier for a reason. That thing is such a difficult thing to break unless you have just the right tools for it. It's such a good generalist. It can really do so many good things. And the same for Great Tusk. This is a decently fast, very bulky, very hard-hitting Pokemon that can rapid spin and hit you with ground fighting coverage raw. Throw in that it can boost your energy like fucking 3 different stats if it wants to, Great Pokemon.
Yeah, Great Tusk, it's like, it holds up so many things on its back. Like, it sets up hazards, it can remove them if need be, it has great coverage, very hard-hitting coverage too. Like, ground and fighting are both known for like the very high base power moves, and those coming off of stab and a 131 attack stat. Ouch. That hurts a lot.
And I mean, we're talking headlong rush and close combat, some very spammable moves, especially off of a Great Tusk. Like, that's 120 base power, kind of for free.
Basically for free, and then again, like, boosted further potentially with that either sun support or booster energy.
Yeah. So, I mean, just looking at Great Tusk Clefable, Nihilus means business. I mean, he's not here to play frivolous games. I think this is going to be a very threatening, all-business draft.
Yeah, and with Clefable, you said if you know, you know. But I know Clefable, and I still don't understand why it doesn't die.
It just doesn't die. You'll hit it, and you'll be like, why is it not killing it? Look at its stats!
It's like you can kill like 100 Pokemon with these stats, and they just topple over, and then for some reason Clefable just doesn't.
It's so good. I mean, Unaware and Magic Guard both just absolutely ace abilities. Just fantastic all around.
Yeah, like if your opponent thinks that they can just like set up and take the game like that, they can't. Clefable will like show up and get in their way.
You've also got to love
if your opponent
how...
thinks that they can, if they can just like set up hazards or set up like toxic or like any other like residual damage, no, Clefable just comes in and negates that entirely.
Yeah. And you gotta love how Great Tusk covers Poison and Steel as a weakness just immaculately.
Yeah. Like, if you hard switch into, like, your hard-hitting Pokemon for Clefable, and then Nihilus read you and is going into Great Tusk, you are now 1 Pokemon down. I don't know which one it is yet, but you're 1 Pokemon down.
Well, you better pick one. And I mean, looking at his team, he's also kind of like Eviolite City down here. He's got Dusclops and Duraludon right next to each other, and these are both just very bulky, menacing, annoying Pokemon with, a very deep toolkit. Duraludon especially obviously got pretty directly buffed. I believe it used to, in the past, run like Assault Vest a lot.
Yeah, it did.
Now, it gets, a direct upgrade. Now it can use special moves, and it has a defense boost because it has Eviolite instead. Steel Dragon has always been just a phenomenal typing. I mean, Duraludon is the greatest little Pokemon of all time.
local NBA star scores 117 points against team of crippled people.
It's just like a bunch of, just awful. Just awful for Duraludon, in a good way for Nihilus.
Who looked at this thing and decided it needs an evolution?
It's like, 115 defense, 120 special attack, steel dragon typing, it could be better.
With that thing a little cup.
Unfortunately, Archaludon's in my division, so oops, thanks for that, but whatever.
Yeah, that thing's also on a terrifying team, by the way.
I also want to make a quick note of a couple things down here. So, Clawitzer, a Pokemon above my own heart. I love that thing a lot. It actually does a deceptively large amount of damage with its ability and its special attack stat. And Illumise being a really, actually quite effective, low-tier screen setter, prankster abuser, Thunderwave, Encore, stuff like that. It can even pivot with U-turn. And Zoroark. Aurora Zoroark can Terra.
I love Zoroark. I have never seen this thing actually do what it's supposed to do, and now it is in the best position it has been in ever. Usually the problem is it's quite kind of easy to read. It's my opponent went into a Pokemon that doesn't make a lot of sense in this situation. And then you can see it oh, it's Zoroark, and then deal with it that way.
Yep.
But even if you do figure out it's Zoroark, now you have to figure out, is it going to be terroring or not?
That's right.
Is it physical or special?
It's a nested mind game. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. Look, if I have to lose, I want to get to playoffs, face Nihilus, and then lose to Zoroark just nuking me while I think it's a fucking Hitmonchan.
Trying to Psychic into Great Tusk, and then it does no damage, and you're like, shit, no!
Just on the floor, crying, and then also, happy inside. I can kick one thing off my bucket list.
At least it happened. Yeah, this team is amazing.
Yeah, it's really good, really sturdy. It's got a lot of different hazards with rocks. You can set up webs.
Yeah, Galvantula, probably the best web setter, besides maybe Rabombi. Was that?
Does it get spikes anywhere?
I don't know. A lot of random things get spikes. I think Great Tusk would get him, if anything, but I'm not sure. Actually, I don't think it does. But I mean, looking at, little baby cores in here, Hisuian Arcanine, for example, really strong Pokemon, has an awful defensive typing, but it does have Stab, Flare Blitz, and, what is it? The other one, Head Smash. It has Stab, Flare Blitz, and Head Smash, and Rock Head if it needs it, or Intimidate if it doesn't need it. Off of a base 90 speed.
Flash Fire, too?
Oh, it's got Flash Fire, so it doesn't have to take 2% from a Flamethrower.
Yeah, I mean, it does boost its fire type if it catches one.
That's true. And I mean, that, but I'm, looking at this in the context of, this division, and, I don't know, Torkoal Earth powers it, or, Hisuian Lilligant just fucking close combats it. I don't know. If you happen to catch, a fire-type move, I feel like it's, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how it goes in this division. I don't think Flash Fire is, kind of a meme on Hisuian Arcanine compared to his other two abilities.
I feel this thing could switch in with Flash Fire into Chiyu and still die.
Yeah, true. Just disappear anyway.
Yeah, Staraptor also. Oh, I love this Pokemon.
Great Pokemon. It again, so underrated. You look at it, and if you don't know, you're like, oh, it's just a Route 1 bird. Who gives a shit, But it's so good. It's got such good moves. 120 attack, 100 base speed. It can Terra now, so, you can come off a really fat Terra fighting close combat, and just be like, what happened? Why am I dead?
I think U-turn as well, right?
That sounds correct. I'd have to check. And I will while you stall for me.
Yeah, either way, this thing's move coverage is just good enough. I think specifically that it gets close combat along with its good abilities makes it so much better, because otherwise all of normal flying types tend to get walled by just rocks or steel types that they can't bust through. And then with Staraptor, if you read it correctly, you can, if not kill it, at least put a significant dent in it.
And it does get U-turn.
It does get U-turn. Yeah, so it's a good pivot too. If you want out of there, you can go into your fucking Dusclops or Duraludon or Fable.
Yep. And we haven't even talked about Superior, which is just ridiculous, contrary, stat barf again. yeah, 75 base special attack is whatever, but if you have a 130 base power stab grass type move that just gets twice as strong every time you use it, you will find that number, it could have been fucking 2, you know? It's gonna do fine.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things that really messes with the human ability to like comprehend multiplicative things. Because like, you know, people tend to like wrap their head around like, yeah, it's twice as strong. Like, okay, that's you know, that's decently like a decent increase.
Yeah.
And like 3 times, it's like, okay, so like if it only did a third of my damage, my health before, now it's killing me.
Yeah.
And then it gets to 4 times, and now it's just like, oh, even if it's just a quarter, even if it's like a very resisted hit, it's still punching through.
And this whole time, you are still getting 130, 120, I forget what it is, I think it's 130, base power move just over and over again. Like, what defensive counterplay is there? 'Cause it's not like you're just nasty plotting and doing nothing else. You are actively pressuring the opponent while you're setting up at the same time on a Pokemon with 113 base speed and web support. What the hell are you even supposed to do about that?
Pray it misses.
Yeah, pretty much. No, I love this team. I think it's so cool and so sturdy, and it's not that I hope Nihilus does good things with it. I expect Nihilus will do great things with it.
Yeah. I also just realized that between like Headlong Rush and Close Combat from Great Tusk, Leaf Storm from Superior, Thunder from Galvantula, and like Flare Blitz and Head Smash from it's all like 100 plus attacks coming out of this top tier.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
Also Hitmonchan can spin. Good for him. Now we can keep going.
Great. We have Iron Tusk or Great Tusk.
Next up, we have got the Kracked Kricketunes, as coached by Not Pimp, our previous season's winner. As far as off-seasons are concerned, he is the first-place finisher in all of Extra Cheesy, having dropped only a single game in Division to Cabral, having beaten a lot of fantastic players on his way to the #1 spot, and is back to redo it in a modern meta, because, you know, that was Gen 4. Maybe some people have some questions about whether he can redo that performance. I'm not one of them, but, you know, I can see why you'd think different meta, different guy. Looking at this team, Ursaluna Bloodmoon in S tier, A tier's Dragonite and Ninetales, B tier's Slitherwing and Ceruledge, C tier's Yuxi, Tinkatun, Talonflame, Porygon2, and D tier's Vileplume, Zebstrika, and Sneasel. Yeah, I think he's gonna do just fine in this season too.
Did you know that Ursaluna can one-shot a Gimmighoul? Or not a Gimmighoul.
Well, I can't do that. I mean, that's
that.
real. Yeah, Ursaluna Bloodmoon is just so good. Its ability is like a better Scrappy. You know, it doesn't. So its normal and fighting moves can hit Ghost type Pokemon. It also can't have its accuracy lowered, and it ignores evasion boosts, so it's just pretty much always going to hit if it has a 100% accurate move just by like a normal margin. It has inexplicably access to Vacuum Wave, and it has just an amazing pool of, you know, like Hyper Voice off of a Throat Spray hurts so bad off of the stab. You know, having Blood Moon as a ridiculous move that just nukes what's in front of you with no immunities because of your ability is absolutely ridiculous. It has
How much
so
base
much
power is it? Is it 140?
I think it's 150. Let me go check.
Oh my god.
Let me go and check Aurora. You can see, you know, it goes from UU to Ubers, you know, from its normal form. Yeah, okay, no, Blood Moon is 140. You're right about that.
Yeah, fucking, this thing is... It doesn't hide what it does. It's a ball of HP, it's a ball of defense, and it's a ball of special attacking prowess. Off of really good stab moves.
Yeah. It's just scary. It's just really, really good. You know, I don't know. Looking at it, it's like it's weak to something like a Grass Knot, you know, or a Low Kick potentially off like a really strong Pokemon, just because its weight and its typing aren't the most defensive. But I mean, God, you're probably not gonna kill this thing in one shot without having already been pretty set up, and Ursaluna is not gonna let you do that. You're just gonna have to, you just have to find a way to whittle it down and hope that you have some amazing rock or steel type that's somehow also not weak to ground. So, get your Lunatone ready.
This thing is just a cocaine bear.
It is Cocaine Bear. It's ridiculous. It's so good. We really debated about whether or not we should even have this legal. But, we did. And Pimp decided he was going to grab it.
We have made our bed, and now we're lying in it.
Yep. Dragonite has been...
I'm not lying that comfortably anymore.
True. Dragonite has been amazing this generation. Without being able to Terra, it's a bit worse in this format, but still, it's... stat spread being perfectly fine, its moveset being absolutely ridiculous, it having access to really strong 134 base attack, extreme speeds, and outrages, and earthquakes, and fire punches, and, it's a really, really good Pokemon. It's very splashable, very versatile, multi-scale is an absolutely ridiculous ability, and Dragonite's just always going to be fantastic as part of a core or not. And he got Ninetales and Slitherwing, so he's got one of those little baby sun cores where he's got, again, one of the 3, technically, drought Pokemon, the third being Vulpix, which is not in this division because I have it. Also, it's Vulpix.
Yeah.
Ninetales and Torkoal are both in this division, and you're seeing, Slitherwing and Great Tusk and, a handful of, good past Paradox Pokemon and other sort of chlorophyll abusers like Hisuian, Lilligant, and Leafeon running around. This is kind of like the Sun division, and then you plonk Firebolt in the middle of it with this funny snow. So it's gonna, like you said, it's gonna be very Weather Wars, but I think mostly you're gonna find it's really hot in here.
I'm going to laugh really hard if Pimp ends up fighting the Phantumps. They both expect, the other person will settle the sun for me, and then there's no sun in that match.
That would be very funny. Just no Ninetales and no Torkoal at all. It seems amazing. I mean, Ceruledge I think is really cool and interesting as one of the new Pokemon. It's from my experience with it, which is mostly founded in VGC, it's a weak armor Swords Dancer that can just go really fast and hit really hard after one hit soaked on a sash. It's got a pretty strong Shadow Sneak. It's got Bitter Blade, which is its signature move that heals its own HP for damage dealt. It's a physical fire type move. So Ceruledge has a lot of cool stuff going for it. On top of the obvious that it's a ghost type, so it's a spin blocker and a fighting immunity, and a normal immunity. Uxie has always been a really amazing, sort of lead hybrid utility Pokemon. Thunder Waver, Pivot, Stealth Rocker, Trick Rumor, Future Skater thing. Gigaton, really cool, amazing typing. Gigaton Hammer is the same as Blood Moon, basically.
Yeah, it's even stronger, actually.
Porygon 2, I think, is really interesting because it is in the tier where it can Terra, but I kind of don't expect it to Terra that often. I think most cases it's going to want to stay normal, because that tends to be a good typing for these sort of really splashable, defensive, especially for specially defensive Pokemon. It only slightly favors special defense. With Eviolite, it's pretty bulky on both sides. But just having the option to Terra Ghost out of your fighting weakness, just forcing people to either do mid-grounds or, do a 50-50 and get it wrong, does make it really quite annoying.
Yeah, he just has a lot of very annoying potential Terra targets in general. Inherent immunities from its ability or whatever. Gets even better being able to choose its typing. Uxie can be a steel type that isn't weak to ground, or a fire type that isn't weak to ground. Zepstrika can be a water type that isn't weak to electric.
Mm-hmm.
So many cool little things you can do to abuse those, get even more mileage out of those abilities. They're already really good.
I think it's funny that Sneasel and Weavile are also both in the same division. There's a lot of little babies plus their grown-up counterparts, right? You've got Dusknoir and Dusclops, you've got Donphan and Great Tusk, you've got Weavile and Sneasel. So
yeah,
funny
also
stuff.
Valpoom is also adding to this little sun core.
Oh, true. It's also a chlorophyll sweeper. I forgot about that. Well, I mean, I wouldn't say sweepers, maybe a little generous, but it can do chlorophyll things.
Yeah, I mean, like, it gets, like, over 400 speed with full investment. So, like, it can't, like, skimp on investing on its speed. And also, like, 110 base special attack is not the greatest.
Mm.
Or, like, something that can't really, like, afford to set up. But, like, again, like, if people are brought into, like, a limping position, it's very easy for this thing to just, like, come up in the sun and, you know, sweep.
Yep.
You know, spamming Solar Beam, spamming Weather Ball.
Absolutely. Interesting side note, Talonflame, just as, like, a fun piece of trivia, Gale Wings does not affect Terra Blast if it's Terra Flying. It does not get priority, as tested by our good and sweet boy IDM4. It does not do that. So that's kind of funny. I don't know.
It does still give it, like, a good, like, move to spam, though.
True. I mean, it's already so fast that, you know, Gale Wings is a little bit niche, maybe, compared to things like Flame Body, where you'll probably get that a little more often. Slitherwing is such a good Pokemon, too. People forget, I mean, it's like a ground resist, which is pretty nice, especially on a team with so many fire types, and an electric type and things like that, you know. Slitherwing can come in and be defensive, or it can, you know, with like a Assault Vest specifically, it can be like specially defensive, or it can be just physically offensive, and it can hit you with just the nastiest photosynthesis U-turn. I think Slitherwing's really cool. I think it's going to do really well.
Yeah. I love a lot of the past Paradox Pokemon.
Yeah.
Didn't like them more than the future ones. I think, like, the robotic look kinda doesn't fit Pokemon all that well.
I think it depends on the Pokemon. I think most of them just kind of suffer from, I don't want to say they're lazy, but they're really samey, right? Like, Iron Jugulus is pretty much just exactly the same as Hydreigon, right? Iron Thorns is pretty much exactly the same as Tyranitar. Like, you don't tend to get it. It's not, like, that creative, I think. Whereas, like,
Yeah.
you know, the past Paradox, you get, like, Sandy Shocks. It's crazy. Slitherwing is crazy, you know?
Sandy Shock. I love that it just walks on the fucking magnets. It's so good.
Yeah. I think
Fucking
Iron
that
Valiant is kind
voice-
of the exception to that. It looks fantastic in my opinion.
Oh yeah, Iron Valiant looks fucking sick. I love that thing. Though again, like, if you told me that's a Yu-Gi-Oh card, I would believe you.
Okay. Why don't you take us to our second to last draft? I got places to be, Aurora. We need to keep the ball rolling.
The second to last draft we have is Chemith, going by the new name of the washed up Wishiwashis.
In response to his performance in the extra cheesy, probably. That's him.
Yeah, he wants to, you know, like, rediscover himself. And rediscover himself he will with Terrapagos as his Asteric, Grimmsnarl, and Kommo in A, Swampert and Hisui and Typhlosion in B, Magnezone, Pheasantipede, Scyther, Braviary, Hisui in C tier, and Vivillon, Blossom, and Bruxish in D tier.
This is a pretty good draft. I'm so interested by Terrapagos, because it looks on paper like it would be so amazing, in my opinion. But we'll just have to see how it pans out, I guess.
Yeah, the fucking, like, it's basically like a Mew,
Yeah,
but with, like, multi-scale ability, basically.
and like slightly better. I don't know. I mean, like, better stats is kind of debatable. I think it's the same base stat total, but it's like distributed.
Yeah,
kind of.
it's base 600 total.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, it's like slightly higher defenses and a better defensive typing. It's a little slower, but like it's got Rapid Spin and Rock Polish if you just want to go full send on, like, you know, setting up. It's got Calm Mind. It's got every goddamn offensive type represented, basically, or maybe literally. It's got a real bag of tricks, and it's pretty hard to stop it from at least getting one setup move off, given its defensive profile and its ability.
Yeah, like, you're gonna have to get some kind of multi-hit move in order to really bust through this, and even then, it's gonna have to come off a really high base attack and
Yeah.
special attack.
We need Arm Thrust. That's what we need.
Get Breloom in here.
Grimmsnarl is a fantastic screen setter, pretty much as good as Ninetales, you know, a little less specialized, but obviously it doesn't get Veil, so, you know, it needs 2-turn setup and stuff, but it doesn't need weather to support it. It also has Parting Shot. which just screens plus parting shot enables Terapagos so hard. It also enables Kommo, which is a ridiculously strong Pokemon. I think, again, people forget it because it's been a couple generations since it dropped, but, you know, that thing has the most obscene... I mean, it can sub Belly Drum and then just get right back up to full HP in one Drain Punch, or it can Clinger its Soul and just have +1 to every stat off of a stat spread that is already pretty good, you know?
Yeah, like, it's got a lot of little tricks, and that's just like using it aside of like setup from just like straight up like attacking with both like usable physical and special move pools.
Mm.
Yeah, pretty like unique typing too, and if it's dragon fighting.
Yep. He does need to worry a little bit. I mean, I look at Terapagos and Kommo, and I'm thinking, like, this is so Mirror Herb fodder, like, from the opponent. You know, I just want to yoink your Clanger's Soul or your, you know, Rock Polish or your Calm Mind or whatever. I think that, you know, there's no Ditto in this division, so that's good. I don't even think Ditto was drafted full stop in the entire draft. But still,
it
like,
wasn't.
There are workarounds if you're going, like, really hard into setup sweepers, but I think Grimmsnarl genuinely does a pretty good job of stuffing most of that counterplay if it's done correctly. Magnezone, notably in this division with Skarmory, so Skarmory's going to have a hard time, and, you know, Magnezone and Probopass can both Terra.
They can both trap each other.
And they can trap each other, that's true. So I'm excited to see that matchup. That'll be funny. Assuming
Actually,
that,
I just realized something. If Probopass and or Skarmory or Magnezone Hera, can they then just leave?
I wonder. I mean, maybe. Yeah, that's a good question. That, you know, scholars get on that to figure that out.
I genuinely don't know the answer to that.
I appreciate that Cam is so willing to, like, try out new stuff. You know, Hisuian Typhlosion is, you know, just only losing that 5 base points of speed off normal Typhlosion is really tough for something that does like to Scarf Eruption so often. You know, Terapagos is really a wild card as to how good it will be in this format. Phantumps is, like, such a weird Pokemon that, you know, we'll have to just see how it pans out as far as being, like, a, you know, it's a grounded poison, but it's, like, a fairy type, and it's, like, a technician user with a better physical attack and, like, no good moves to do it, but it also gets, like, beat up and toxic chain, so, like, it's always toxicking things, and, I don't know, Phantumps weird.
Yeah, it feels sort of like a poison fairy version of, like, old Articuno.
Yeah, I would say that makes sense. What we know is good is the other technician user, which is Scyther.
Oh, Scyther.
It's
It's one of those, like, standout, like, first-generation Pokemon that just sort of, you know, like, it just got better with time with, like, little additions. Like, it's ability, better move pool, better, like, shit like U-turn.
Yep. Jokingly, he was referring to it as an extreme speed user, because you can Terra normal quick attack off of Technician, and it does, like, not an insignificant amount of damage.
It's almost a
Almost knee speed.
knee speed.
Almost.
It's
you
one
know.
base power lower.
Hisuian Braviary was really on my radar too because Esper Wing is its signature move, and it raises its own speed by 1 every time it's used, so it's kind of a budget, you know, speed boost, and you can pair that with Tinted Lens, or you can just ditch the concept entirely and go for Sheer Force and just have, you know, a strong hitting psychic move that stab, you know? This thing...
Can you imagine if you could Esper Wing with Sheer Force and have that still boost
that
your
would
speed?
still work. God, could you imagine? I mean, Hisuian Braviary, I think, is going to be such a choice user of Terra down here. I think it's going to be one of the better ones. I even saw in SPL, it was specifically, you know, written in the rules that, like, Hisuian Braviary cannot Terra. Cannot be a Terra captain.
I'm
expecting good things out of it.
Yeah, we'll see how well it performs here. Another, like, really good potential Terra user, Vivillon.
Yeah, a couple good
Anything
Quiver
that can
Dancers.
Quiver Dance.
Awesome can
Don't
too.
sleep
That
on
was worse. You know.
I mean, it has the same special attack as Vivillon.
Yeah, but it's so much slower.
Yeah, that's the main problem.
And Vivillon can actually, you know, compound ice sleep powder some stuff. So it actually might get off Quiver Dances without having to immediately burn its Terra. Whereas I think Velossum is just a little too, I don't know, not like frail, but like, my god, this thing is in division with like the strongest fire types in the game. You know, I don't feel confident in its ability to not get totally smoked just because it's so slow.
God puts his strongest fire types up against his worst warriors? I don't know.
Rockfish also has the same thing as what do you call it? Serena, in that its ability is pretty much exactly the same. It's just another ability that prevents being priority attacked and dazzling. Obviously, it's probably going to run strong most of the time, but you can get some trickiness out of evading a potential sucker punch or quick attack or extreme speed, which a lot of those are running around in this division.
Yeah, 10-7 had a weird thing where like it just had like a number of abilities that were just called something different, but had the same effect as another one.
Hisuian Typhlosion's also really cool. I complained about its 5 missing speed, but I think Infernal Parade is a really interesting spammable move, kind of in the vein of like Barb Barrage. I think that Fire Ghost is just such an oppressively strong typing, especially in draft, where
Yeah, we have seen it perform well, especially on shit like Chandelure every time.
Yeah, and we already gave a nod to Ceruledge, which looked really strong, but this, I mean, again, Hisuian Typhlosion, just, God, Eruption is so good. It's so good and so scary, and I just think this team is really interesting, and honestly, you could snip off everything below Komao, and I would still think you could probably beat some people with just Terrapagos, Grimmsnarl, Komao. Doesn't help, or it doesn't hurt to have, assistance in that, Magnezone, Swampert, very consistent Pokemon, and you have so many, like, threatening potential Terra Sweepers. This is a great team. I like it, He doesn't have hazards, really. He's got, like, Swampert Rocks, and that's pretty much it. So that's unfortunate.
Does Terrapagos get anything, like, hazard-wise?
I don't think it sets up hazards. It spins, so, it's got that. But, I'll go ahead and check on that, actually. There's no reason to presume, Terrapagos.
What happens when you make assumptions.
Terrapagos Terrestal. You get...
Aside from that, yeah, like, this team is just, like, so, like, with screen support from Grimmsnarl, like, so many of these Pokemon are just like, oh, you gave them a turn to set up? You've lost.
Yeah, Terrapagos gets rocks, but nothing else.
Okay, yeah, so Camus has rocks.
Yeah, and he had rocks on Swampert already, so, I mean, again, that's fine.
Camus has rocks.
Camus has got stealth rocks. You better watch out, fire and flying types.
Why does that, like, make it sound like a vaguely racist?
Okay, alright. This is, I think, a really strong team. Just even the top half of it is so strong, and there's so much tricky business you can do on the bottom half that you can definitely pull back some difficult games, I think, just based on random things like Esper Wing or Dazzling or Compound Ice Sleep Powder or Pheasantipity Beat Up. Like, there's so much stuff down here that people have to know about and be ready to defeat that I'm sure he's going to slip something crazy under the radar every game.
Yeah, looking very much forward into like how he ends up using it exactly.
All right, Aurora.
Like the amount of options here is just crazy.
It's ridiculous. All right, Aurora. We got one more team in the glorious, wonderful Teal division. I'd like you to please introduce it to me.
We are the last person we have here in Teal division is Skittles, coach of the Crystal Cresselias, and he's coming at us with Iron Moth, Monkey Dory, Slowking Gallard, Clodsire, Gengar, Skuntank, Toxicroak, Weezing, Giraffrai, Muk, Swalot, Victory Bell, and a single answer to Earthquake.
This draft is Mono Poison. We're done. I mean, that's the thing. We can move on. Look, I love you, Skittles. You're so great. I love that you play with us. That's fantastic. Last season, he did Mono Water. Did get a win with it. I predicted that he would. I thought, yeah, Mono Water, not really a bad pickup as far as Mono-type teams go. Not as charitable towards Mono Poison. This team gets fucking owned by so many Pokemon solo. I mean, this is a division that has Great Tusk in it, man. This is gonna be so hard.
There's a whopping 2 answers. He has to, well, 1 answer to each of Poison's weaknesses. Poison is only weak to ground and psychic. And he has 1 Dark type and 1 levitating Pokemon.
Yeah. I mean, he
And that's
has like one answer to any given type, right? Like, okay, wow, water totally works this team, but at least Victory Bell resistant and Clodsire can be immune. Okay. Obviously, ground destroys this team, but you do have Levitate Wheezing, so there's that. You know, you could also Air Balloon, I guess. Like, okay, maybe you get totally beamed by, like, a strong fire type. Iron Moth technically resists that. You know? Monkey Dory can, like, do Future Sight stuff. Galarian Slowking can do Chilly Reception to replace the sun with snow, except in front of Fireball, where you wouldn't want to do that.
If Fireball gets a warm reception instead.
Yeah. This team is gonna struggle. It technically doesn't auto-lose any matchup, I think, but, like, my god, he's gonna have to just know every button the opponent clicks and also their entire team spread if he wants to win any of these matches. It's gonna be really tough.
To his credit, Toxic Spikes aren't going to be a problem.
That's true! He will not get poisoned. It's
Unless
too bad,
he turns away from poison.
There's no Salazzle or Glimora in this division to poison him, unfortunately. But if he makes it to playoffs, you know, he could fight Glimora or Glimmet or something with Corrosion.
And again, like, he could terrestrialize into something that can get poisoned.
He's got rocks. He's got Toxic Spikes. He's got Toxic Spikes. He's got Toxic Spikes. He's got Toxic Spikes. And he's got Toxic Spikes. And he's got Toxic Spikes. Refai can prankster stuff, you know, can like do a little screen action, can do a little parting shot action.
This team has 3 separate Pokemon with base 110 speed.
Speed control, baby. I mean, generally, you want your Pokemon to not all have like the exact same threshold to beat, but you know, what are you gonna do?
I don't know. This is going to be something.
I'm excited to watch his matches. I think they'll be funny.
Yeah. Like, it's not like there's no options, but he's gonna have to manage them pretty well.
Yeah.
If he wants to get anywhere.
I would love to see you succeed, Skittles. Let's hope that you can do that.
We salute a monotype stan.
And that is the Teal division in Double Dip Draft Season 7. Thank you for breaking that down for me, Aurora. I had so much fun with you today. This was very enlightening. I do like that we ended it on Skittles, but genuinely so many strong drafts, so many interesting players. I think the storylines out of Teal are going to be beautiful.
Yeah, a lot of things to look forward to. A lot of matches that I think will be like nail biters, very interesting to see like the tech options that people can bring against each other. We have multiple weathers playing here, which is always interesting.
Yep.
Not that many Paradox Pokemon, I don't think.
There's a handful. I mean, you got Great Tusk and Slitherwing, and you know.
Yeah, Great Tusk and Slitherwing. Is that it?
I think that might be it, actually. Like it's an interesting division. It's
Raging Bolt.
Oh, Raging Bolt. Thank you. Okay, I figured there was a third one. Just a really interesting division. I'm looking very much forward to seeing how it all plays out. If you would like to, you should definitely consider checking out our companion videos to this one, where we covered the Scarlet and Violet divisions. And I hope you'll stay tuned for Week 1 matches, which, you know, we're expecting the first one to be played today. We're recording this on Thursday. I think, like, Woody and Jason are going to play. That's exciting.
It's already a very good match to kick off with.
Yeah, so I'm really looking forward to it. Thank you so much for giving us your time today, and we'll be seeing you soon for some more Double Dip action.
Goodbye.